All right. Hello and welcome to our virtual stage crew meetings here. This week we've got Kirk Starks from ETC joining us to talk about his work over there and lighting control and all of that. So without further ado, welcome Kirk. Thanks so much for taking the time. And let's start by just talking about how you got into theater.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. As I was thinking back on how I got into theater, I realized that I've gotten into theater by sneaking into a lot of places. In junior high school, we were doing a show, and I kind of snuck into the back of auditions, really wanting to talk to the theater director about being the stage manager. And instead, she cast me in the show, and that was kind of shocking. Not really expecting to be on stage at all, but kind of got the theater bug from there. But spent a lot more time in the theater, and then eventually kind of snuck around and was able to sneak into the lighting booth, into the lighting grid at that time, which in that old school was lots of asbestos and really where kids really weren't supposed to be as a part of that. But and I don't know if it was the asbestos or just the thrill of focusing a light that really kind of wanted me to pursue it further. So I was really lucky in that our school district, where I grew up in Colorado, was building a brand new high school, and it was only about 3 blocks away from where I lived. And so as they were building it, and then kind of over the summer between the time that they had built it and the time I was going into freshman year, I was able to kind of sneak into the theater and really learn, like play around with the lighting system, really learn exactly what it was going to do. And from there, just kind of tried to position myself as, hey, I'm the lighting guy. I'm the lighting guy. I still got cast in shows. Still did other things on stage crew. Lots of set building, lots of painting, lots of costuming, and other parts and other disciplines throughout the entire technical theater background. But lighting was really kind of where I focused. And so from then, I was kind of like, okay, this is actually something I want to go on and have a career at doing. Because if you had asked me in like seventh, eighth grade what I was going to be an aerospace engineer. And it turns out that there's a lot of math in aerospace engineering. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. And it didn't really excite me as much as I thought it would as I came closer towards graduation, and figuring out kind of what I really wanted to do with my life from there. So yeah, that's kind of
Nice.
where I came into theater.
There's been a question that's popped up over a couple of course of these, and I really like it, so I keep throwing it back out there. Is there one show that you remember that really kind of like got you into thinking about theater, like something you saw even like before you started doing it, or was it really just like seeing stuff in middle school, high school, like through your like educational experience that opened that up, or like
Sure. Yeah, so I would say that I've always been that kid that walks in and immediately looks up to what the lights are doing, and what kind of the scenery and everything else that's going on in the theater, walking into a theater. There are a couple of shows that I would say that stand out in my mind as kind of a really um, uh, kind of bit me in a way that, like, oh, this would be cool to do. The first one was 7 or 8. Went and saw a touring production of Beauty and the Beast. And it was one of the national tours of it that had just the amazing transitions. It was shortly after the movie, animated version had come out, so they had reworked some of the stage show to take into account some of the stuff that they did in the movie, to to really kind of excite and so that you've got the be our guest song and singing and dancing and all the drapes coming in and the lighting changes and very dramatic thing. And I remember being pretty struck by that as a hey, this is really cool. Like, how are they doing this? What's going on? And then also in our school district when I was growing up, we did the high school productions put on shows for the elementary and middle school production. I had like an invited dress essentially, where you have a daytime matinee where they'd come in and watch it. And so one of the shows that one of the other high schools did at that time when I was in elementary school was Wizard of Oz, and they actually flew the house. Like they had the house pick up, spin around, fly up, and then fly back down and land on the witch. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Nice.
I was like, okay, how are they doing that? Like, what are we doing? And that for a long time, like I thought it was the engineering side of it, of how are they doing it? But as I, kind of progressed further, I really started to see the art in it. And something that really drove home the artistic side of technical theater and of lighting for me was one of the very first shows that I ran lighting for. My theater director at the time said that I had to do every single cue by hand. Right. We had an express console. So we had, it was an express 2448, 2 rows of faders, 24 on each row. And every single cue had to be manually set and cross-faded by hand. And where that led me was the appreciation of the artistry of a fade, right? That there is actually something different between 2.8 seconds and 3 seconds. And really, like, yes, you could program in all the cues, like the computer could do it for you, but there's a real art in understanding that and getting the timing with the actors and with the feel of the show, and sometimes being a little long or being a little short depending on what the mood of the space was, really kind of drove home that artistry. And so I guess after that, then I really started seeing as much theater as possible. So I grew up in Greeley, Colorado, which is about 40 minutes north of Denver. So it doesn't really have the big tours like you would get at the Overture. But there is a touring roadhouse there that some like the B level, C level kind of tours, the smaller things that come through. And so when I was a junior in high school, I really pushed to try and get an internship there. They didn't have any interns, right? I just kind of badgered the guy who was running the technical crew there at the time until he finally relented and said, "Okay, fine. If you stop bugging me, I'll give you an internship." Unpaid, right? Like, she's finally getting free labor out of somebody. But I, learned a lot from that and really kind of moved forward from there.
Nice. That's cool. Um, so where'd you go from there? Did you know that you wanted to really pursue um, the technical theater as you got into college, or was that kind of like a process for you? So what was your kind of education and career path?
Sure. So coming kind of the probably my sophomore, junior year of high school, I really knew that, okay, this is a thing I really want to do. Yes, engineering and aerospace engineering has way too much math. I could do it, but I just, it's a lot of show your work. Really don't care too much for that. Let me do something that I'm actually passionate about. And so my senior year of high school at the Thespian Festival, we had colleges that would come and you could do interviews and whatnot with recruiters that had come to talk, and try and get you to come to their school. And so I met with a few of those recruiters and showed a portfolio of my work that thus far, and then was accepted to the University of Northern Colorado, among other places, but that's where I ended up going to study theatrical lighting design. That was always the intent of going into college. And at the same time as doing that, I had also started working as in off times as a freelance lighting designer as well for local theater companies, local dance troupes, and other people who really didn't have a whole heck of a lot of money to spend on it, but it was paid for the college snacks and whatnot, and paid some of the bills to do while working through college. So
Nice.
yeah.
What's that program like there in Northern Colorado?
Yeah, it's an amazing program. So one of the things that the University of Northern Colorado does is it does not have a master's program, right? So everyone in the undergraduate program are the designers, are the technicians, right? So you're not fighting for designs. They also do an amazing number of shows a year. It is when I was there, and I think they're still at this number, but they might have actually increased it. When I was there, they did 16 main stages and 32 one acts a year.
Wow.
And so about 8 main stages a semester, about 16 one acts a semester. And then on top of that, you had dance and opera and other performing arts happening as well. But that was just the theater performance, right? And so with the undergraduates being the designers as well, you had 2 or 3 faculty design shows, and the rest were designed by undergraduates. And so usually by your sophomore year, you're starting to get actual design credit and actual doing standalone designs on your own. Whereas in a program where you've got undergraduate and graduate level students, you've got a lot of the times the graduate level students, right? They're the ones kind of getting all of the design goodness there, and the undergraduates really have to fight for the either the other programs that are remaining, as well as all the student produced things, which is great. Like I student produced things are an amazing thing to do, but also to get the like university funded
Yeah,
experience as well is something that I can't say enough about that program.
yeah, that's cool.
It is the top theater program in the state of Colorado and one of the top theater programs in the United States.
Nice. And is that a BA, or is that a BFA program, or is there an
Uh,
option for either?
Yeah, so that's a BA program. The kind of difference between a BA and a BFA for what the university wanted to do, like it's really mostly paperwork difference, and at that point, and so there wasn't really much of a desire to try and transform that into a BFA program, but it's basically the same
Okay,
thing as you come out of it.
cool. So what where'd your professional career start after college then? Like how'd that transition work for you? And
Sure. So when I my senior year of college, I thought I was going to go to graduate school and maybe design a couple shows after graduate school and go teach, right? Go teach at university. And so I was really excited about, okay, let me figure out a good graduate school to go to. And I realized that at there's this thing called ERDAs. It's a audition program for graduate students to get into graduate school for both acting and for technical theater. So you get, for the technical theater side, it's a bunch of interviews, right? You present your portfolio, they take a look at what you've done, your design aesthetic, your credits, and then they schedule interviews and you talk with them. You talk both with seeing they're selling their program to you and you're selling yourself to their program, in the hope of that they'll pay for graduate school, right? In the hope that they'll give you a scholarship or something that'll just pay for it all and you don't have to worry about it. And looking through a lot of those programs, I realized that a lot of the things that they're offering were I had already gotten out of undergraduate, right? Because a lot of the graduate programs are focusing on, hey, we can offer designs for graduate students, but having done so many designs in undergraduate, the idea of, okay, I'm going to do a project that's a paper project where we don't actually ever realize the design, where you just do all the paperwork, you do all the work, but you don't get to do any of the fun of the
Yeah.
of the design. Didn't really appeal to me all that often, or all that much. So said, okay, I'm going to take a year off, and then go back, right? Because take a gap year, figure out something to do. And during college, I had also started attending USITT, United States Institute for Theater Technology's annual conference, and I had over time built up a relationship with Doug Tuttrup, who used to work for ETC as the project manager, who dealt mostly with Disney and Universal and the big theme parks and whatnot. You guys talked with Lowell Olcott previously. It's his wife now does that job. Jess does that job now. But at the time, Doug and I would talk at the trade show at USITT, and he kind of be like, are you graduating yet? No, not yet. Okay. Graduating yet? No, not yet. So finally, when I said, yes, I am graduating, finally, he's like, okay. And we sat down and we talked a little bit about exactly kind of what I just said of, graduate school really not grabbing me. Like, you kind of need it to be a professor, but, it's not really a thing that I'm super, super interested in. And so he said, hey, well, we've got this, internship program that lasts for a year. Why don't you come, apply for that and come work with us? And I did, and moved to Wisconsin the weekend after college graduation, and started at ETC the Tuesday afterwards. And I worked in our project management group at that time, helping with a lot of the paperwork and kind of cleanup of jobs as they're going on, of making sure things are shipped, making sure drawings are doing what they're supposed to be for new projects. So like your new black box theater, right? You've got a package that was put together by somebody, and you've got some drawings that show exactly how things are supposed to be connected and how the system's designed, and to make sure it works appropriately for what you're looking for. And that was kind of my job, is to help coordinate a lot of those drawings and help clean those up. And then I decided, hey, Wisconsin's not so bad. It's a little bit like Colorado, but the weather's less schizophrenic. Why don't I apply for one of the open positions in technical support? And I got it. And I've been here ever since. So I'm kind of in my gap decade at this point, between undergraduate and graduate school. I've been at ETC about 12 and a half years now. So
Nice. Um, how was that transition from kind of like focusing on design to then kind of looking more at the systems and like would you equate it to more like a master electrician sort of role, or like was there a bit of a disconnect between the like real arty kind of design stuff and then getting back into some of the more technical aspects, or was that always just kind of rolled into your process?
sure. Well, I would consider myself a very technical designer, in that I try to use and leverage the technology to support the art, which I think most designers do. But I think I pay more attention to what the technology of the tool can do, as well as the art of it, right? And so It was quite jarring though, right? In going from I'm designing for a show, right? This is going to last, 2, 3 weeks, maybe a month or two, and then it's done. It's ephemeral. It's gone. And that was nice. We have the party, and we're moving on to the next thing. To really thinking about, wait a minute, how's the infrastructure working? How is it that we have all of these circuits in all of these different places? Are they where they should be? Do we have all of the right bits and pieces to support the things that they're going to bring in? You had mentioned that your black box is coming in with some, color source fixtures, and so how do you get data to those fixtures? Do you have the right ability to talk from the console to the fixture in all the places that you think you're going to put fixtures? Is really something that, as a designer, as a lighting designer, wasn't something I really considered, because it's like, okay, put it on the grid. Like, I didn't have to redesign the space. Just, put it on the grid wherever, I tell you to put it to make that light angle, and, it kind of, up to the ME to really figure out how to run the cable and where to plug it in. But you're really not, thinking about, wait a minute, where's that plug-in that goes into the wall? Like, where does that go back to? Because that's already done for you, in a lot of that cases.
Nice. Um, so what is it that you do now? Like, what does your day to day look like over there, and what are you working on?
Sure. So now I am a technical support specialist, technically a senior technical support specialist. The senior means, I think, that I get a walker at the end of this. So if you've got, old tennis balls, you can shoot them my way. I'll put them on, and I think finally when we're back in the office, I might be able to use them. No, what it really means is that I answer questions and help people from all over the world. From, anybody from the very, hey, I've never heard of a lighting console, to, the Broadway designers and the Disneys of the world, and, the theme parks and television shows and movies. Really, if you've got a question or issue with an ETC piece of equipment, or even if you just kind of have design questions, or a lot of times we actually talk to people who don't know anything about the equipment at all, or don't even know what kind of equipment they have. They just know, hey, my lights are stuck on, or my lights won't turn off, kind of thing. And we provide 24/7, 365 support. So, that is something that essentially kind of falls to my group to work and help with. Um, Being here as a senior level, what that really lets me do is more involvement in the product design process as well. So all of our specialists are are kind of focused not only on being able to support everything we've made, but also everybody has a product specialty, because it's really kind of impossible to remember every little detail about every product we've ever made for the last 44 years. And so we kind of break that up and share that around. And so though every product specialist uh, goes to product development meetings if the product's in active development, and helps be the voice of the customers that we're talking to, right? Oh, hey, we're hearing about this type of thing is broken, or hey, it'd be really nice, like, our current products don't do this, but this is the thing that we're really hearing, like, we keep getting asked over and over again, can it do this? Maybe we should talk about possibly letting it do that. And then it's, up to the product managers, the designers, the engineers to figure out, a, if we're going to do that, or, if that is even a possibility. But really, my job is to be the advocate for the customer, and to really kind of make sure that your voices as end users are heard in those design and development meetings, so that we're making the better product, and the product that really solves the needs of what we're actually looking for. And so as a senior level, I get to kind of spread across a lot of those, and be involved in a lot more different projects in a little bit earlier process, and really help drive some of that forward.
Nice. Um, So I've had the pleasure of calling tech support on a couple occasions, and I can speak to the great service that I've received on a couple very tight turnarounds there. Some of you were around for I Never Saw Another Butterfly a year and a half ago when
That was the show
our
I was cast in.
oh really? Oh,
By the
that's
way,
hilarious.
that was the first show in junior high school.
Oh wow. Yeah, our light board just decided to die like during the like preview for the grade school, um, and luckily it like turned back on one last time to save to the external flash drive before uh, dying a slow sad death, and got it over to you guys real quick. That was quite an adventure with a house full of people. Yeah, Carly's one of her first experiences there, and they got to run everything off of the little touchpad with just like lights up, lights down for a minute, you know. But
Yeah,
we had
that kind of
something
thing can
else from
happen.
you guys to use by the time that we did the show that night, so we were feeling pretty good about that. But it was a wild ride. Um, so for
Yeah.
folks that like haven't had the pleasure of calling you, like what does it like? You're getting any type of call imaginable, right? Like you're
Mhm.
getting the call from somebody like me who the equipment just died, and you're trying to source that. You're getting calls from like tech, like directors probably that are working in like a school that don't have a technical theater person at all, who are like trying to figure out how to turn it on or turn it off sometimes, even like to then having like really detailed questions from Broadway programmers who are trying to figure out how to shortcut something or like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, get calls from pretty much everybody. Who someone who's never seen our equipment or even don't know that it's even ours. They just know, hey, they told me to call this number and you can help me out. And to the people who are really digging in deep to the very esoteric feature that only four people really use in the world, and three of them are in the room with the person calling. And so, yeah, we talk to everybody. One of my favorite pager calls. So pager is because, like we said, we provide 365 day support, 24/7. If you call us when we're outside of normal business hours, you'll be able to leave a message and we'll call you back within 15 minutes. And we call that service the pager service, because you're essentially paging us to call you back. And so one of my favorite calls was a church that was, on the weekend. It was like probably 15 minutes before service was about to happen, and their lights just wouldn't work. Right? They're like, "Oh I've tried everything. I don't know what to do. Just help me out." And so we talked with them, and it turned out that their grandmaster fader had been brought down by a volunteer the night before, as they were leaving, didn't know how to turn off the lights. But hey, this fader brings all the lights down. I'll turn that off, and it was stuck down, and they didn't realize it. And then they said, okay, great, thank you. You don't know anything about sound, do you? And we're most definitely not a sound company. But the problem was that they were, I've got the microphones and I can see the lights on the channel, and I can see they're talking into them, but I just don't get any sound out of my sound console. And turns out, again, their master faders were down, and you bring those back up, and away you go. That's kind of the folks that really don't know really anything about the system, or just we help them out.
Mhm.
And then we get the kind of really crazy calls from like the high level folks, where there's this company that has mouse ears that also have a bunch of ships out in the world, and so um, they had a ship that had just launched the year before, and they were building another one in dry dock, and the ship that had just launched the year before called us saying, "Hey, we've got lights that are just turning on and off randomly all over the ship. We've checked everything here. It doesn't seem like there's anything wrong here, what's going on? Well, this multi national company who happens to make great things in the world of Pixar and Star Wars and other things as well, turns out that their entire network is one global network, and they had configured the switch on the ship that was in dry dock exactly the same as the one on the ship that they had just launched, because it's exactly the same. Why not? They literally copied and paste. And it turns out they were sending lighting control from the tests that they were doing in dry dock up via satellite and then back down to a ship in the middle of the ocean controlling their lights, because they have this global interconnected network. And thankfully, we never had to see the bill of what it costs to send lighting control via satellite.
Right.
But that's the kind of real weird but real high level kind of thing that can come in on the other end of the spectrum, and everything in between.
Wow. Um, so with your product line being so vast, like how do you divvy up something like customer support and tech support?
Sure.
Like that?
We all know the basics about everything,
Mhm.
right? And when I consider the basics, it's really kind of the advanced level training or above kind of level of stuff for our technicians. But then each product specialist, or each product has a specialist who's really the one who goes to those development meetings, who gets into the nitty gritty, gets into the deep weeds about how the products develop, what the choices are, and the kind of more esoteric, oh, we saw this once or twice kind of type questions. And so when we're talking on the phone with you, if you're talking with somebody who maybe that's not their product specialist, that specialty that you're talking about, they will get to the point where they may ask, say, hang on a second, I got to talk to someone and see, dig into this further. I've got a more detailed question, or you're seeing something I haven't seen before. Let me learn that from the product specialist. So and at that point they'll talk with us. So you may be put on mute, so literally we can still hear you, but in case you need to shout at us for some reason. But we're talking with them when we're in the office, or in this kind of time, it's a lot of team and instant message kind of chatting back and forth. And then we also have a product support site, support.etcconnect.com, which has articles about all of our different products. So as the product specialists get different questions, or as someone asks a question that they think that other people are going to want to know about, they'll write an article into that and put that up on the web for everybody to see, so that you can also, especially if the hold times are a long time, it's a good place to look for it and see if you've got an answer that you don't necessarily need to wait on hold. Of course, we're happy to talk with you throughout that.
Cool. So what advice do you have for folks who are on a similar kind of career path, like, or
Yeah,
interested in this type of work,
sure. Yeah. Well, Lowell said it in his, and it bears repeating. This industry, there are about 12 people who work in this industry, and we all know each other. The joke is that there are 12 people who work, and the rest of us go drinking together. Um, and it really is all about those connections, and those you never really know necessarily who you're talking with, and who what opportunity is going to come and be presented to you based on a conversation or based on your interaction with someone. So absolutely maintain those connections, network as much as possible, introduce yourself, to stand out in this industry. Really, it's not about what you know. It's about how well you get along with everybody else on the team. Theater is very much a collaborative effort, right? There's no one person or one department that makes or breaks a show. Um, it all comes together. And so being able to work with your own teammates in your own department, but also work with your other departments and your other teammates there is really going to be something that going forward is going to drive you there. That's not something that like is a product thing. Like it doesn't matter when we look for people to join the technical support team. We don't look for expertise in a product. It's nice if you already know the product, but I can teach you the product. Teaching you the ability to communicate well and get along and really be a part of the team is not something that we generally teach in as a professional development thing. It's more of a you've gotten that coming in, and so now is a good time to develop those team working skills and really being able to get along with folks. At this point, as you're looking at potentially going to college for this versus potentially going down directly into the industry path of directly working. Call Before COVID, I would have said college is kind of an optional thing. Like it's something that if you really want to work in the industry, you absolutely can without a college degree. You can go join an IATSE crew, join a film crew and work your way up and absolutely do that. With COVID going on, I think that one of the few places that are still doing actual theater are the universities. And that's really, one of the few people who are really trying to invest and actually take the time to keep that process going are the universities. And I think now is a perfect time to join a university, to go to college for that. Not only are you going to have a college degree, which at this point is kind of like the baseline for almost any job you can get in and out of the industry, but also you're going to be in an environment that is still caring and producing the arts. It may not look like it does now. Like you guys are looking at virtual events and maybe filmed events where you're not in front of a live audience so much as you're doing a film or in front of a Zoom crowd kind of thing. But you're still advancing the art and you're still working in the art itself. When it comes to looking for colleges, I can't recommend strongly enough, look at programs that are undergraduate only if you want more opportunities, right? Programs with graduate degrees are great. They're absolutely fantastic. But as an undergraduate, the type of work you're going to be doing is really going to be in support of the graduates for the most part. As opposed to if you really want to get your hands dirty and get into a program where you don't have any competition, essentially, right? You're not trying to compete with upperclassmen to get spots to do your art. And that's really where I would say there.
Nice. You mentioned Festfest earlier
Mhm.
too. I know a few people have been out to that. I have not made it out to that yet, but sounds like there's some really good resources there for people that can make that trip.
Absolutely. Yeah, Wisconsin's a little bit different than the Colorado one. So, Wisconsin, I think, is actually part of the folks that do forensics or competitive speech now, as far as the how that festival is driven. But there's still great opportunities. There are tech challenge is a thing that goes on there. So it's not just about actors. It's not just about the folks on stage as it is. Also, there are more opportunities as well for folks off, and there are a lot of places where universities will come and talk to. It's a good chance to get to know people and get to know people at those universities, especially if you're going in more than 1 year in a row. You can start building those relationships, and start making friends with other people outside of just your own crew and see how they do it as well. That's one of the kind of the things that I really loved the most about it is seeing everybody kind of talk together. And there's a lot of like the tech challenge is a very competition thing, but there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of cross department interaction, and I think is really cool.
Nice. Um, so how do you see the industry changing, both like pre-COVID and now with like some of the COVID stuff? Like, we've mentioned like the integration of like video into theater is like a big thing. I think that people, if they can kind of like get some of that intro knowledge on the video end right now, I think is like a big step ahead. But like, where are some other things that you see like coming down the pike?
Sure. I mean, this isn't the first time we've had theater in a pandemic. There was, a lot, all the way back to the plague, right? Shakespeare wrote a bunch of plays during while the plague was going on. You know, uh, the joke is Isaac Newton was so bored he invented calculus during the plague, right? There's still things that can be happening during a pandemic. As far as the industry is right now, it's trending in a very in a very isolated way. We probably won't see live events and concerts and things for at least another year, would be my prediction, because of how this particular virus spreads, and it kind of attacks the closeness that is, theater's a very experiential and close knit thing. So as an industry, we're changing to try and accommodate for that, right? How do we bring people close together? How do we have this shared experience, that is a theatrical production, but not be physically in the same space, or be physically in the same space but safe, right? How do we keep the actors and crew safe, who absolutely have to be near each other if you're doing kind of a traditional blocked show. It's not like they can unless your blocking's always 6 feet apart from each other. It's not like you can really social distance in the same way that that the audience can. So I see there's a lot of technology development going into kind of the how do we clean spaces. We found that UV light kills this virus. So there's lots of different places that are developing UV sanitation lights. We have some as well. Focusing primarily, first on the medical world, right? We want to make sure that the hospitals can get disinfected first. But I think you'll start to see that kind of filter in as our industry kind of adopts those things and kind of steals from the other industry innovation that's going on there. But yeah, absolutely. I think learning the virtual things, learning lighting for film and broadcast is different than lighting for theater. Um, you see your eyes see differently than the camera sees, and so learning the differences there, being able to experiment with that. As a scenic designer, maybe learning how your renderings can be done. So maybe you're developing essentially a green screen kind of style, where the actors are acting in front of a green screen, and then your design is being imposed on in the background, right? So it looks like you're on set, but you're really on a green screen, is something that we're seeing a number of places, especially in university settings right now, that are filming, are kind of doing it that way. Costuming is very much a found, right now, a lot of people is like very much a found thing, or sew it in one place, mail it, and, trying to do fittings and go, okay, measure yourself, get a friend kind of thing. Isn't the easiest, but it's being done, right? The industry will survive, I think, overall. I think it's going to be something that for the next year or so is going to be very different. And I think once we get to a point where people feel safe being in large gatherings again, then our industry will really come back and thrive, because people have missed it so much, right? How many people really miss concerts and being able to go and listen to that music? live in person, being able to, not hear for 3 days afterwards because you stood right in front of the speaker stack. These things will come back, but it's going to take time. And I think that the industry is really trying to find ways to keep that art going throughout this kind of down period
Yeah.
within it.
Um, are there any like certain aspects of like some of these changes that we've made right now that you see like kind of carrying out, like um, kind of the good to come of some of this stuff that maybe like these are things that we can like hang on to that either saves travel time or save some time in the theater or like um, lets it be more accessible to more people.
Yeah, I think there are programming tools like we've done with Augmented that can certainly improve that, right? Because you're not in the space, but you can still program your show. A lot of the pre-visualization type things. I think the integration, what we're going to see is the integration with digital media and kind of projections, and it's really probably going to change a lot how the scenic world really comes back as well, right? You're still going to be always building physical sets, I think, for every level of the art, but maybe some of those materials and so how you communicate. I think everybody getting into a room and to communicate is great, but if you can't get all the designers here, we've proven that we can kind of all work remotely. We don't all necessarily like it, but we can kind of do it. So I think those kinds of things will carry forward in the industry. The I don't think that you know that the old practice, maybe some of the old practices where it wasn't necessarily safe, but we did it anyway because the show would go on. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on safety that will carry on, and we'll expand out to not just about avoiding respiratory issues and from a plague style thing, but how do we make the fly system safer? How do we make the set safer? How do we safely do some of the weapons rehearsals and other things, right, to get there? So I think that kind of focus on safety is going to
Yeah.
I hope that it will at least stick around as well.
Yeah, one of our previous guests, Payson, kind of mentioned like she kind of sees that this could kind of usher in the end of the 10 out of 12 just as like these long, ridiculous days that are not productive and not really safe by the end of it, that like um it's she thinks that's going to kind of be on the way out too, which will be hard to do, and a lot of people are going to really hang on to that. But I think that's an interesting thing to see if that comes back or not. So
Yeah, and I think another thing that'll hopefully come out of this, I think we're seeing is hopefully because there right now there's a lower barrier to entry on a lot of things. So I think hopefully we'll see an increased diversity
mhm,
across the industry, right? Because you're no longer really have to be in a specific geographical location to do a thing.
mhm.
So you can really pursue those opportunities globally, and hopefully that will also carry through, that it becomes a much more diverse and much more inclusive workforce
Yeah,
overall.
for sure. Like interviews and auditions and like being able to like submit um for these things and like do a Zoom call to like get your foot in the door someplace before you have to travel halfway across the country on your own dime to just make an introduction or whatever. I think it'll be interesting to see how that kind of rolls forward here. So
Yeah,
cool. Well, that covers the questions that we have. So I want to thank you for your time. But I'll stop recording here and invite people back, and we can kind of chat if anybody has any other questions. We can touch base there. So thanks so much.
yeah, absolutely.